wisdom,
prudentia,
justice,
justitia,
temperance,
temperantia,
courage.
fortitudo.
Applying ancient philosophy to modern life, this is the Sunday Stoic.
This graveyard is full of people I know. This town's full of people I don't. They tell me it's hell growing old, so maybe I won't. Welcome to the Sunday Stoic Podcast. This is Steve coming to you from my bunker in Conway, Arkansas, sheltered in place, as it were. Although we're one of the few states that do not have a stay-at-home order at this point. I hope wherever you are in the world, you are doing okay. It's interesting times. It's a great test of our stoic determination. Before I continue, I want to thank Simon, Bungus, and Sal for becoming new patrons at www.patreon.com/SundayStoic and supporting the podcast. That helps to keep the lights on here in the Stoic Studios. Thank you very much. Now, I understand, however, right now are tough times, and if you can't support the show financially, that's understandable. And even if you are now and you decide to drop your support, that's also understandable in these difficult times. You have to do what's right for you. But if you can support the show, you can do that via Patreon. So things are interesting right now. Things are different. Things are a little bit chaotic. And it depends from person to person. Some of you are at work constantly because you're essential employees. Perhaps you're in the medical field or a police officer or something like that. Or perhaps you are like me and I'm a teacher and I'm stuck at home trying to teach from home with poor internet, which makes it very difficult. Like right now it's raining and I can barely access like Google Drive. I don't have access to it. I can't get on it when it's raining because the internet cuts out. So it just depends on our situations, what we have to do. So we have to remember our own roles and our own specific circumstances and apply Stoicism. This is the time. This is the Olympics, as Epictetus would say, where we must show our training in action. We've done it. We've learned some of the basics. Now we put it to work. And if you don't know, if you are like losing a sense of purpose or sense of regularity, I recommend checking out Donald Robertson's latest video on maintaining a daily routine. I think it's very useful for those of us who might find we get to the end of the day and all we did was watch the news or something. So I recommend that video. I'll put a link to it in the show description. So this week's episode is going to be based on something I heard about on another podcast I have no idea about, but a term from the martial arts world, a Japanese term about making progress. It's called Shuhari. And I think it kind of ties in to a way of looking at Stoicism. So what I wanted to focus on this week is making progress as a Stoic. We've talked about this episodes and episodes ago, but making progress as a Stoic and what that might look like and how we have to cut the apron strings or whatever that term is. You know, we have to stop nursing from the font of Seneca and Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus at some point, and we have to turn towards the future instead of back to the past. And that's difficult. And I haven't done it. And most of you, look at Twitter. No one does it on there. Twitter is nothing but a bunch of people requoting the ancient Stoics over and over again. So we're going to talk about what the Stoics have to say about that. The Enchiridion by Epictetus, Chapter 5. When then we are impeded or disturbed or grieved, let us never blame others, but ourselves, that is, our opinions. It is the act of an ill-instructed man to blame others for his own bad condition. It is the act of one who has begun to be instructed to lay the blame on himself, and of one whose instruction is completed, neither to blame another nor himself. Moral Letters to Lucilius by Seneca, number 33, on the futility of learning maxims. That is why we give to children a proverb, or what the Greeks call kriya, to be learned by heart. That sort of thing can be comprehended by the young mind, which cannot as yet hold more. For a man, however, whose progress is definite, to chase after choice extracts, and to prop his weaknesses by the best known and briefest sayings, and to depend upon his memory, is disgraceful. It is time for him to lean on himself. He should make such maxims and not memorize them. For it is disgraceful even for an old man or one who has sighted old age to have a notebook knowledge. This is what Zeno said. But what have you yourself said? This is the opinion of Cleanthes. But what is your own opinion? How long shall you march under another man's orders? Take command, and utter some word which posterity will remember. Put forth something from your own stock.
The Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, Book 2, Number 2.
Whatever this that I am, it is a little flesh and breath, and the ruling part. Throw away your books. No longer distract yourself. It is not allowed. But as if you were dying, despise the flesh.
So according to Epictetus, what does progress look like? Well, when we start off, we blame others for things that go wrong. When we're sick, when things don't go right, when we have made a poor decision, we'll blame others. When we start to learn Stoicism, we learn that only things that are in our power, right? And those are where the true good lies. So then we realize, oh, it's our fault that things have gone wrong, or that things seem to have gone wrong. But then when we've made full progress, we will not blame ourselves or others. We might say our opinions are wrong. That's what's gone wrong. I'll just change that. And then we move on. So there's the 3 stages of progress. The beginning, the middle, and the end. Marcus Aurelius talks about making progress in that he says, put away your books. You know the basics here. It's time to apply it, put it away. Diving back into the literature isn't going to help you be a better man. Move forward. And then lastly, Seneca. Seneca says it is shameful for someone who has studied Stoicism their whole lives to keep reading and quoting Zeno all the time. We need to be people who make maxims, not repeat maxims. That's what I said about Twitter. You know, a lot of us are still in that infantile stage of Stoicism where we just regurgitate what Seneca said over and over again without actually internalizing it, adding to it, tweaking it, and then building our own philosophy, adding our own stamp to it, uttering words that someone else will quote, and put your name at the end of the quote rather than Seneca or Zeno or Marcus Aurelius, right? These are the signs of improvement. We don't just want to have a encyclopedia of Stoic sayings in our head. Maxims are useful. Learning quotes is useful to get the ideas cemented, but then we move on from there. We make progress. We begin to make things our own. And that is where this idea of Shuhari comes in. And I am not an expert on this, but I just wanted to introduce you to the idea. It's a martial arts concept from Japan. And basically, there's 3 parts. Shu, which is tied into traditional wisdom, learning the fundamentals. This is when your instructor teaches you rote memorization, repeating the same moves over and over again. This is like being in Epictetus's classroom where you're working on desire. And you're eliminating all desires, and you're eliminating basically your aversions to things external, and you are just learning the basics and repeating them over and over and over and over again. This is when you're obeying your master, you're obeying your teacher, you're developing habits. Then the next step, ha. This is kind of a detachment. You're breaking with tradition a little bit. You've learned the basics. Now you're experimenting with your own moves, your own ideas a little bit. You might be experimenting with your own stamp on things. Okay, you're doing your own thing a little bit. Then finally, re is the last step. This is when you separate. This is when you become more of a master. You are able to now be the teacher, if you will, and that's a really
crude summary of this, but this is just my brief understanding. Okay, so if you know more about it, feel free to send me a clip, and I'll put it on the air. But this is the levels of progress. You start off with just hard work memorizing the terminology, hard work memorizing the patterns of thinking. Then once you've done that, you start experimenting with, what if I do this? What if I read a little bit of Epicureanism and I try this or I do that? And then finally you tie that all together and you become separate from your teacher. You walk out of the school and you yourself apply it every day. You yourself may be able to teach it now and to stand up as an example of this. You are now fully Stoic. So how can we apply these things in our lives? Well, a lot of us are in that shu phase, or maybe the ha phase. We are experimenting. We're trying to figure out where we fit in, what we think, what we believe. And we don't want to move on too quickly, but I don't think these are always linear. You might come back around and realize, okay, I tried to progress, but I need to get the basics down. I don't have a good daily routine yet. I need to work on that. But you build those things in. Then you progress. You add your own ideas in. Maybe things that a classical Stoic would be like, what are you thinking? How could you do that? Well, you know better. You have to live up to your own individual nature, not the nature of Marcus Aurelius. And the modern times, modern science, things like that. And then finally, maybe one day you yourself have implemented this thoroughly. You are essentially a black belt in Stoicism, if you will, and you can begin to be the sage, as it were, or be a person who is fully aligned, as the Stoics might say. Your thoughts are non-contradictory. Your actions are non-contradictory with your thoughts. You are a completed Stoic, as it were. That's just a thought. Hey, before I go, I have a very short free-form podcast I created just to supplement the Sunday Stoics. Basically my porch cast, where I just sit on the porch and talk about things. And it's not really released on a regular basis. I'm not going to stress out about this podcast. It's just something I do occasionally. And it's called The Pondering Porch. The Pondering Porch is available on several platforms at this point. So if you want to just check that out, feel free. It's just a little light philosophy and occasional rants by your host, Steve. All right, thanks for joining me this week. I hope to talk to you all soon. Please take care of yourselves and be Stoic. Carpe diem.
Thank you for listening to the Sunday Stoic. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, rate, and review the Sunday Stoic on iTunes. Become a member of the Sunday Stoic team, earn rewards, and be an integral part of the show by becoming a patron at www.patreon.com/SundayStoic. Contact the show by emailing sundaystoic@gmail.com. To find out more, visit www.sundaystoicpodcast.com. And as Steve always says, carpe diem.